Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Ordinary Council Meeting 4549 of Hunters Hill Council. Can I ask you all to please be upstanding? I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and waters of Hunters Hill on which we meet and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. We're joined today by Rosemary Brooke, who is going to provide prayer.
Loving God, Creator God, we thank you for the outstanding beauty and rich heritage of this lovely part of Sydney, the Hunters Hill municipality, proclaimed over 160 years ago. We give thanks for the enduring custodianship of this land and waters by the Wallamedical people of the Eora Nation over thousands of years. We acknowledge the legacy of the early French and Italian settlers, of dedicated environmentalists ahead of their time, and all who have contributed to the positive development and vibrant life in this area. We give thanks for Hunters Hill Council's care and the work of so many in maintaining its beauty and safety for all who live or work or visit here. We give thanks for the Council's executive leadership team and their staff, led by the General Manager, Nick Tobin, and for the demanding dedication of our elected representatives, our Mayor, Zach, Deputy Mayor, Julia, Councillors Mark, Tatiana, Carla, Carol and Ross. We acknowledge how important their families have been in enabling them to contribute significantly to the well-being of the people of Hunters Hill. We also include in our prayers the New South Wales Local Government Minister, Ron Hernick, New South Wales State Member, Anthony Roberts, and Federal Member, Jerome Laxale. When we look yet again at the state of the world, we truly value our local government, including the essential services Council provides, and critically the voice Council offers our citizens through various avenues, including Have Your Say and meaningful opportunities for celebration. We pray that wisdom, intellect, justice and compassion, social cohesion and the legacy being created here for this and future generations will always inform and be at the forefront of council planning and decision making in the best interest of the whole of our community. Our local churches are thankful that council invites prayers to start its council meetings. It reminds us that we are all ultimately answerable to a loving Creator God, whose Son Jesus showed us through his actions, his parables, and deep understanding of human nature, how we should live and treat each other, not with indifference or insincerity, but with compassion, courtesy, respect, and recognition of a power far greater than ourselves. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Rosemary. Please be seated. There has been an apology received from Councillor Carla Kassab, who won't be able to join us this evening. Councillors, any declarations of interest? The proceedings of all councillors.
I have a declaration from staff.
Yes.
In item 8.2.
Yes. Noted. Thank you. To the General Manager. The proceedings of all council meetings in open session, including all debate and addresses by the public, are recorded and webcast live on council website for the purpose of facilitating community access. Webcast archives are stored and available to the public on council's website. The recordings may be disclosed under the provisions of the Government Information Public Access Act of 2009, the GIPA Act. Members of the public attending council meeting may have their image, voice and personal information, including name and address, recorded, publicly broadcast, archived or as an observer or other interested party. Members of the public consent to the use of their image, voice and personal information. Councillors, there being no declarations of interest, we move to item 1, confirmation of minutes of ordinary meeting 4548 held 25 August. Moved Councillor Tanise Sleeman, seconded Councillor Preston. Any discussion? If not, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. We now move to council reports. Item 4.1, review of the Hunters Hill LEP 2012 and Hunters Hill DCP 2013. We have one speaker to this item, which is Maureen Flowers. Maureen, you can come up to the lectern. Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm speaking on behalf of the Hunters Hill Trust, who, like many others, contributed feedback to the local environmental plan. And we're pleased to see that there has been some success in making the regulatory framework clearer, particularly with regard to landscaping requirements. And there is now greater clarity around permissible building heights and basements. However, we do have some concern about the effects of urban heat islands in the context of climate change, as already identified by the local planning panel. The LPP recommended that this area warranted greater consideration and suggested council takes a similar approach to Penrith Council, whose LEP states that development consent must not be granted unless planning and design maximises green infrastructure, retains water in the landscape, uses design to ensure a high degree of passive cooling, uses building, paving and other materials that minimise heat impacts, and reduces reliance on ventilation and cooling systems. Unfortunately, council planners have decided these regulations are not relevant in our LGA because all development is only localised infill development within established natural and urban landscapes, and that sufficient significant sustainable development provisions are now proposed through amendments to the Development Control Plan. However, the term of infill development certainly can't be applied to the Gladesville Shopping Village proposal, with the master plan being sidelined in favour of high-rise tower blocks that will leave the area vulnerable to the heat island effect. Neither can the importance of sustainable development just be relegated to the non-enforceable Development Control Plan, whose policies can be easily overturned, putting the community at the mercy of owners or developers reluctant to factor in such measures. In addition, there is a current anomaly where, although the DCP allows for a good level of tree planting, this can be difficult to fit into the areas of green landscaping as prescribed in the LEP. So to be successful, sustainable development and greening provisions must be embedded within the LEP with the impact of legislation behind it. We can no longer afford to be complacent in light of the latest research on the consequences of a heating climate. As we know, our tree canopy has been steadily declining. In just over 12 months, another 61 mature trees have been removed from private gardens. And we now fall far short of the New South Wales government target of 40%. We need strong greening rules.
Sorry, Maureen, moving the
Sorry.
question of time. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Lane. All those in favour? Against? That is carried.
Thank you. We need strong greening rules to prevent wall-to-wall development of oversized buildings and hard surfaces, creating heat sinks and putting pressure on our stormwater drains with fewer trees taking up excess water. We only have to arrive by ferry at Valencia Street to see the devastating effect of what we are allowing to be built on our foreshores. Where once there was bushland, we now have large concrete edifices where the many health benefits of tree cover are sacrificed on the altar of maximum profit and the latest trend for oversized homes. Therefore, we would ask Council to refer to the recently endorsed Urban Forest Management Strategy, excuse me, which expertly documents effective solutions to increase sustainability, and seriously consider incorporating some of these well thought out measures into the LEP. Thank you.
Maureen. Councillors, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillors, we have a recommendation, item 4.1. Is it moved? Councillor Preston, seconded Councillor Tannous-Sleeman. Councillor Preston, do you wish to talk to the item?
Nothing.
No. Councillor, any speakers against the item? Councillor Lane.
I wanted to foreshadow an amendment.
Yes, you may. You've sent that through.
Yes, I have. So I don't have a problem with the LEP proceeding, but it,
Sorry, councillor Lane, could you just
Sure,
tell me
I'll
what your foreshadowed amendment is? Just read it out for the moment.
sure. I have to paraphrase, I don't have the exact wording, but the amendment was to remove the words "and the development control plan included in attachment 2 of this report" from 3, and to introduce a new clause after 3 that requires council to workshop the DCP, and it refers to 2 specific areas.
Thank you. We'll take those as read. Councillor Say, do you like to speak to your foreshadowed
Yes.
amendment?
A lot of work has been done on the LEP, and there's a history there, which I
Lane,
acknowledge.
can I just get you to
Oh, of course,
down,
sorry.
please?
Having an early dinner. Yeah, so a lot of work has gone on the LEP, and I recognise where it's at the moment. I think it's as Maureen has outlined. It's sort of a bit of a disappointment that even when we have local planning panel recommendations, we never seem to adopt any of the issues that they raise. But nevertheless, I think it's ready for exhibition and we need to get on with it. The DCP, on the other hand, this is the first time we've seen it and we haven't even had a chance to workshop it. I also note that as a result of this being the first time, there are some specific issues of concern to me. The first one is medium density residential development, where the clauses don't seem to reflect the fact that we've had significant changes in that area under the low to medium rise reforms, and therefore, for the most part, are not even enforceable. So that's 3.9. And I can give you specific examples. For instance, we talk about a minimum lot size of 700 square metres. That's no longer the case in New South Wales. We talk about garden areas that I'm pretty sure are not going to be enforceable given the pattern book. And we just need to update it so that it's effective and efficient at regulating this new development that's going to so significantly change the northern component of the LGA. And 4.4, which is Gladesville Village Centre, still has definitions of the sites which are inconsistent with the planning proposal that we put up. I recognise that the planning proposal will obviously change site 4, but to the extent that this is going to apply to the remaining sites, we should at least have the boundary consistent with the boundary of the planning proposal, and we should have been looking at how those other sites can be maximised as part of the DCP. So what this amendment is looking to do is to exhibit the LEP, but to park the DCP until we can do a workshop and exhibit it separately.
Thank you, councillor Lane. Any speakers for the motion?
We're dealing with the amendment.
So foreshadowed.
Mr. Mayor, can't foreshadow because there's no other amendment on the table.
So there's a motion on the table moved by councillor Preston, seconded by councillor Tanus Lehman. There was a yes. So he's foreshadowed. He's foreshadowed an amendment. He has not moved an amendment with a seconder. He's foreshadowed an amendment that if this motion should fail, that would be the proposed amendment. He didn't move an amendment. He foreshadowed it.
Well, if I move it as an amendment, can we?
Yes,
You can, yes, but you didn't move it as an amendment. You foreshadowed it as an amendment.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I move it as an amendment now. If someone's willing
Is that seconded? Seconded, councillor Williams. Councillor Lane, do you wish to speak to it again?
No.
No. Okay. We're now dealing with the amendment to item 4.1. Yes, we actually pull it up now.
Is it the yellow?
Yes.
Yeah.
General Manager, did you want to look? I mean, council can hold a workshop, so that's
Yeah.
not a.
I'm fine with
But
that.
that's not something that's contrary to the motion that's been tabled in the report. But sorry. Sorry, councillor Lane.
Yes, the main change prior to that, which you can't see on the screen, is the deletion in 3 of exhibiting the development control plan. So the idea would be to workshop the development control plan and then exhibit it separately.
Well,
Councillors,
I'm not clear. Sorry,
Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Lane. Is there another part to the foreshadowed amendment other than what's on the screen?
so just for clarity, councillors, the amendment is to remove from 3 and the development control plan included in as attachment 2 of this report. So it would be to not exhibit the DCP. Insert after 3, council is to hold a workshop on development control plan in attachment 2, particularly sections A 3.9 in consideration of the low, medium rise reforms, and B 4.4 to align site definitions with Gladesville planning proposal and consider design for remaining sites.
And sorry, I've just
Councillor Lane.
realised when I sent it through, there was a mistake, which is it should have read council prior to exhibiting is to hold.
Prior to the public exhibition?
Yes.
Yep.
So it was moving down the previous clause, which I just.
So can we, sorry, Councillor Williams, are you comfortable with that being amended to reflect prior to exhibition?
Yes.
Yes. So we'll amend the amendment to in item 4, prior to public exhibition, council is to hold a workshop. On the first line, prior to exhibition, is that correct, councillor?
Yeah, prior to public exhibition is fine.
Prior to public exhibition. Exhibition council is.
You can do it that way.
Yeah.
You can just say council, comma, prior to public exhibition, comma, is to hold.
Yep. I think the intention's clear, councillors. Yeah. Okay. That is the amendment. Any speakers against the amendment? Sorry, councillor Vergara.
Not speaking against it, but question through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Just if you can get the director's view on all the consequences of
Yes.
splitting that up that way.
Yeah, pass across to the Director of Planning. Pass that piece of paper back to Kieran.
Through you, Mayor, Kieran will explain the issues, the 3 issues about
Yep.
consultation. And mind you, this report is basically to put the elephant in this bit on exhibition, and that process will incorporate a briefing of the councillors, a consultation, commentary from the community, and taking on board all the concerns. Kieran.
Yeah, so with these couple of matters, so there are a number of state government planning reforms that are coming through at the moment. The intent with the DCP review was to keep the review very much local and focus on the consultation that we've done with the community. So if we have, I suppose we could say, more aspirational targets for our development control plan of what might be in state policy, that is a reflection of the journey that we've been on with the community over the past couple of years. In relation to the Gladesville DCP chapter, so we're doing a review of the full existing chapter of the DCP, inclusive of the full boundary as defined in that current chapter. It will include the Gladesville planning proposal. It is being done by our urban design and architecture team, so they'll be looking at all 4 blocks of the precinct and adjoining areas. So we are doing a full review of that chapter currently, and that is intended to be linked to the Gladesville planning proposal. We see those 2 things as fundamentally linked, and the whole chapter will be revised as part of that process.
And that process will come back to council to review and for the commentary and also the community.
Thank you.
Next point is about the LMR and all those issues.
Did you want to address them now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so once again, the low mid-rise housing reforms have come through from the state government. They do provide provisions, planning provisions that guide that type of development. I suppose when you move out of those LMR areas, so just to use a bit of a definition of 800 metres from a Gladesville and Baronia Park, within 800 metres of those commercial centres, we do have those state provisions. Outside of that, it becomes a bit of a different story. So as we move further to the east in the municipality, we're looking to retain and enhance what we have. And once again, if the planning controls are more ambitious perhaps than some of the state policy, that's a reflection of the consultation that we've done with the local community to get to that point. So I do appreciate some level of difference between that, but that is where it's coming from. It's coming from that local position. It's how it's been drafted.
Thank you. Councillors, any speakers for the motion, for the amendment, sorry?
Well, do we have any against?
We've had a question from Councillor Vergara.
Is there any against?
I'm asking for, is there any for?
Well, I'm prepared to speak for.
Yes, you can speak for the motion.
Are there any against? Because it normally goes one.
I've called for and no one has, so I'm asking if there's anyone for, and you can have the call, councillor.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think it is rewarding that finally we've had an LEP that now reflects floor space ratio and goes back to what are the fundamental issues around our garden area. Those issues were lost along the way, and I see that they're now back in, and I think that's very important because they were very important issues for our community. But in terms of Councillor Lane's amendment, I think it is important that we separate the two, the DCP and the LEP. The very reason that we haven't had the chance to look at the DCP, we've got the issue that there, as the officer has said, there's a range of things impacting on the outcome of that document. And I think the community would be looking for some guidance based on all the rhetoric in the media associated with the government's imposition of a range of new planning provisions, which will change dramatically the landscape and the livability of our municipality, particularly in certain precincts. I think just to ignore those in our DCP doesn't really give the community guidance as to where we're heading as a council and as a community in relation to our respective futures around the built environment. So I think it is important that we separate the two, that we give due consideration to the important elements of the DCP and the impacts which are being imposed upon us from external sources. I will foreshadow, but we'll raise at the conclusion of this amendment another amendment dealing with the heat, urban heat issue. But I do support this amendment because I think it will give us the opportunity to really address the issues around the DCP. And it's good to see that now we're going to be moving forward with the LEP at this stage.
Thank you, councillor. Any speakers against motion? The amendment, sorry. For the amendment? Right of reply?
Yeah, just a brief right of reply in relation to the issues that staff raised. While I recognise that there's going to be an amended chapter, I think most of the community who have approached me about Gladesville have a very murky understanding of what's going on. And I think if we put a document on exhibition which isn't even consistent in its boundary to our planning proposal, and it's a brand new thing, and people reasonably expect that a new document that's on exhibition reflects council's current view, we are unnecessarily creating more difficulty in terms of communication difficulty with the community than we need to. And I don't think it's a major update to carve out what the PP does. My bigger concern is with the low to medium rise reforms. I recognise outside those areas the 700 square metres and so on, but we are going to see one of the biggest changes to Hunters Hill, probably in its recent existence anyway, in terms of the numbers that the low to medium rise will bring in. And if you look at the DCP, a DCP is a guidance. So they are lower level and they're trying to encourage people to do good things. Like, you know, it's very prescriptive about what a good and a bad car park looks like, or a driveway. There's no guidance whatsoever for the LMR reforms. And what usually happens with a DCP is if it's so far wide of the mark, then it just gets read down. So if someone came along and they wanted to build 4 terraces and they wanted to pave the front and make it all hardscape or whatever, we don't have any document at the moment we can point to that describes what green medium density looks like, for example. And if this is our last line of defence in the LMR reforms in describing what a future medium density character looks like, I think we really should do that work. I don't think it's much work either. I'm just talking about a workshop, a bit of extra, so that we can guide that. Because at the moment, if you were going to build a medium density within the LMR area, and you looked at that very short chapter on medium density, you could effectively just ignore it because it's so far from what the set allows you to do. And so I'm encouraging council to hold a workshop so that when we do go out, we can speak to those people who are already putting in DAs for this substantial change and guide an outcome. And specifically to the comments of the local planning panel, I think this level of change in the council specifically will change things like the green character. And so we can influence that through the DCP, if not the LEP. I think the DCP is fine. But if we don't say anything about it whatsoever, then it's very difficult to influence those outcomes. And so I would encourage all of my fellow councillors to pause a little bit on the DCP. I'm not saying don't exhibit it, just pause, have a workshop, work up those clauses so that when we go out, we're putting our best foot forward.
Thank you, councillor. I'll put that motion forward. Sorry, councillor Tanussi-Lehmann.
Got
The-
one question, sorry.
Yeah, you might need to ask it when we go back into debate of the original motion, or if this motion is passed, then it will become the motion. Councillors, that concludes debate on the amendment. All those in favour? Against? That is lost. The original motion becomes the motion. Councillor Prieston,
Can I please propose an amendment to the original motion?
you may.
Mover. Thank you. If you could pop it up on screen for me, that would be great. I don't want to delay the process any further, and therefore I voted against Councillor Lane's foreshadowed motion. However, I do think it would be beneficial to hold a workshop on the DCP.
Might councillor just ask
Yeah.
the staff whether or not they're comfortable just doing that rather than by motion? I believe that we're
happy
able
put
to
it-
do that anyway,
Understand,
because that would be
We
normal
definitely
process at council.
Yeah, we
Yep.
definitely can, but while it's on the table,
Yep.
I'd like to keep council accountable for that.
Yep.
Because I do think it would be beneficial. So to insert a thank you. GM, did you?
I was just going to perhaps an extension of point 3.
Yeah.
And that council hold a councillor workshop in relation to the development control plan in October. We're ready to do it. So.
Subject to one above, council endorse for public exhibition the planning proposal and the development control plan.
And hold.
Following
No, I wouldn't. No,
Yeah,
the whole point is
yeah.
not delaying it.
no, it's
Yeah.
not contingent on it.
Yeah.
That's not my proposition, but it doesn't matter when we do it, I suppose. And the DCP
council
included as attachment to this report. I just would make it a new 4.
Sorry, councillor, continue, please.
Thank you. A new 4, which says council hold for councillors a workshop.
That a councillor workshop be held.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, that
Right,
a
start,
that a
if you
councillor
could start
workshop.
again, that would be good.
Sorry.
Just a new 4, yeah. If you put your cursor where the 4 is, after the 4, and then hit enter. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We can fix that later.
Yep.
That councillor workshop
Be held
in
during
relation.
exhibition.
No, can you just
I'm trying to get, I get the
that a
intent of what you're
councillor
trying to do.
workshop in relation to the development and control plan be held did you say in October, GM?
October, okay? Yep. Yep, in October.
In October. Thank you. And then that 4 will become 5.
Secondary, are you comfortable with that? No?
I have a question around that.
Yes.
If that's okay. A question through you, Mr. Mayor, to Kieran. I don't know if I'm not sure if Councillor Vergara's question regarding consequences of these amendments. I assumed we were going to consider timeframes in terms of time impact. And I think that's what Councillor Preston sort of making a comment that, that you would have been comfortable to include a workshop. If we did a workshop in October, how does it impact the timeline?
It's got nothing
So it's
to
not
do with the
contingent, as
approval.
I understand it, it is just, well, because this is going out to public exhibition and can be amended substantially when it comes back to council following consultation with the general public and subject to a councillor workshop.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Preston.
The intention is just so that councillors are well equipped for that process when we do receive feedback from the community as a result of the public exhibition, so that we're well briefed on the DCP just at a governance level, and so that we can make informed decisions on what we need to change, if anything, to the DCP once we have finished with the public exhibition. So it's not contingent on anything, it's just for our benefit.
But can't we just conclude that into a meeting? Why do we have to have a workshop for it?
Sorry. You're asking why it can't be included in the meeting?
Yeah, so if we've in our next October meeting, what do we included in terms of a summary of changes that have been proposed that come out of the public consultation?
Yes, and we would presumably have a workshop to discuss those changes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, to discuss the DCP, not the changes from the public feedback, but that would come up, ultimately that comes back to council as a report for adoption as the DCP and the.
And Councillor Preston's recommending that we workshop the recommended changes or feedback.
No, that we workshop the DCP itself.
No.
Sorry, councillor, that is what is in the motion.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's not to workshop anything, it's for effectively the experts to brief councillors on the effects as drafted in the DCP. We're not planning experts. I'm certainly not a planning expert. I think councillors would benefit from an explanation of what's in the document. That's it. It's not workshopping. It's not coming up with ideas. I want to know what's in here, how it's changed from the original, and like a lesson, like a school. I don't think it's controversial.
We have a proposed amendment moved by the mover. Is the seconder comfortable including that?
I still don't understand it.
If not, then that's fine. So that is an amendment moved by the mover. Is it seconded? If not, Councillor Vergara.
Yeah. I'll second it.
You're seconded?
Yeah.
Okay. We're now going to debate of that amendment as separate to the original motion. Councillors, I do struggle. This could have just been done as a functionary of the council staff, but we will go into debate now. Councillor, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Yes, I didn't intend on it being complicated. It's a mere lesson for the councillors so that we're well informed on the DCP as it's drafted by the experts. I'm not an expert. I'd like to know what I'm voting on after we send the document to public consultation. And what I'm considering in the documents has been explained to me. I feel like it's an opaque document. It's hard for people to understand. I'm not an expert in planning, and so the purposes of the amendment are to inform councillors and just to hold the council accountable so that the briefing actually happens. We can weave it into an existing briefing of council. It doesn't have to be a hugely complicated thing. I just think since Councillor Lane put it on the table, I think it's something that would benefit the council in its decision-making process. That's all. It doesn't change anything to do with the timeline. I'm still in favour of the document proceeding to public exhibition and for the process as outlined in the report to be adhered to in terms of timeframes. I'm merely asking for an explanation to councillors as to what's in the document and why. It doesn't even have to be interactive for all I care.
Thank you, councillor. Any speakers against the amendment? For the amendment?
Can I ask?
Councillor Williams.
Have you put up on the board for us?
Too hard. Yeah.
General Manager, just to make a comment.
Just to note, council, this is, the LEP has to go to the department first. If our experience with the Gladesville planning proposal is anything to go by, it's going to take months to get out of there. So having a workshop, we've got plenty of time to do a workshop. There's no urgency, but we will do it in October. But so I just really look. There's still a long way to go with this thing because you've got to get out of the department planning. So I just didn't want us to think that there was this urgency to make all this happen straight away. But we'll keep it moving. But it is good to get everything off to the department, get that part approved, and then we can actually get it out to the public, which is what's the number one priority.
Thank you, General Manager. Councillor Williams.
Question through you, Mr. Mayor. We've still got the term workshop in for. I've heard Councillor Preston say that it's not a workshop, information session. So is the terminology there correct? And can we still hold briefings or information sessions?
First question will have to be answered by Councillor Preston, but first the second question needs to be answered by the General Manager because he and the GMAC group have done a very thorough dive into the new model code, which is fairly prescriptive in what briefings councillors can and cannot have.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, there's no issues holding a workshop, council workshop, as we do now between now and the 31st of December. Come the new year, when the new code of meeting practice comes into play, you cannot hold a workshop for an item that's on the current agenda. But there's still no reasons why we can't hold workshops, on issues that aren't before council and to help inform staff when they may bring a report in 2 or 3 months' time. So that's how we're going to have to use the workshops going forward. But between now and the 31st of December, no issues sending it up to the council workshop, which is probably the third
Briefing.
Yeah, the briefing, council briefing. The third Monday of the month.
Thank you to Minister Honing for making the code of meeting practice very complicated. Councillor Preston, would you like to answer the first part of Councillor Williams' question?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Williams, thank you. That's a good point. And on that basis, perhaps I could propose an amendment as the mover of the motion, just to write that at an upcoming councillor briefing, councillors are
item on the agenda.
I'll just say, for want of a better term, are briefed in relation to development control plan, and it's maybe say and its departures from the prior document or something. It's a bit specific, but I just want, I guess the intention is to make sure that we're briefed appropriately and not just at surface level. But I'm certain that the director and Kieran will ensure that we are doing a bit more of a deep dive than
Is the seconder of the proposed amendment comfortable? Thank you.
So delete the words "to be held in October."
Seconder happy with that as well. That's the amendment. Is there any further discussion, councillors? Councillor Lane.
I suppose I am a little concerned with it being a a briefing rather than a workshop, but my concern is maybe not in relation to this meeting, but rather the fact that we didn't get that briefing or workshop prior. So considering Councillor Prieston, what you're saying, I think we're also not experts, for example, on FOGO, and we get those briefings in order to understand what council staff are considering, so that we can, representing the community, steer that decision to reflect what we understand the community's wishes to be. And we are quite involved in some decisions, even though we're not experts in the field. And we've now had a community strategic plan and now a DCP. These are key council documents that we are custodians of, that we don't get the time and consideration for. I would love to see, as a general practice, to you, General Manager, that we do hold workshops on things well in advance of these things coming to council. And I think that the fact that this is the first time that we've seen the DCP shouldn't have happened in the first place. And so we're retrofitting a briefing now because we didn't go through a process of being briefed the way that we're briefed about FOGO and these other key issues. And so while I acknowledge your point in terms of this can be a briefing in October, I think the fundamental issue is that we've gotten to a point where we as council are asked to approve things we've never seen before. And, you know, particularly, again, a 400-page document, we seem to be putting the cart before the horse. I think at some point, for me, I would love to see council, when we have another major strategic change coming up to council without prior consideration, knock it back and say, well, we'd like to get that briefing first, or we'd like to workshop it first, because otherwise, how can we make an informed decision? And so that really is my concern about the briefing after the course. But I acknowledge it's probably better than nothing at all.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Councillors, any further discussion? Councillor Tannous-Sleeman.
Thank you. Can I propose that the changes that Councillor Preston has made, can that be captured under point 4? So under the...
Councillor Tannous-Sleeman, we can't amend an amendment. If you'd like to amend it, it needs to be voted on, and then when we get back into debate about the original motion or the amended motion, if this is successful, then we can talk about any other amendments that can be put forward.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes. Councillors, is there any further discussion? Right of reply, Councillor Preston.
Just quickly, I want to make it clear that this is not as though we've had the wool pulled over our eyes. This has been an iterative process over a very long period of time. As the director mentioned at the outset of this discussion, we have collated in this document feedback from the community over time, feedback from councillors, feedback from council staff and experts in the field. It's not as though this document has been whipped together with no input from anyone, including the community. So I just want to make that clear, that these concepts that are drafted in the current DCP put before us are not something that none of us have ever seen before. It's just that I think we would benefit from a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the concepts and the opportunity to ask the director and his team some questions before we make, concrete decisions on the plan following public exhibition. So it's not to say that we don't get provided with the requisite materials or the requisite opportunity to make inquiries ourselves. It's just that I think this is an added bonus, and particularly an extra opportunity for us to be educated and make exceptionally informed decisions for the benefit of the community.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour of the amendment? That is carried unanimously. The amendment now becomes the motion. Councillor Williams.
I'd like to move a further amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Williams.
I did
shoot.
I did.
I don't think that this motion is going to reflect the original at all by the time we get out of here. Councillor Williams, you have the call.
Well, hopefully it'll be improved dramatically. So there we go. I'd like to move a new point. So it'll be point 6, I guess. The council.
7 currently.
Well, okay.
We've already added a point 4 to make it,
Wherever
thick.
appropriate.
Yep.
So it'll be the last one.
Please
Yep.
proceed, councillor.
That council includes a clause that reflects 7.3 urban heat as described or as worded in the Penrith local LEP 2010 urban heat, and that's clause 730 in their LEP.
Sorry, councillor, can we just have that a little slower?
Okay.
That council includes a clause 7.3 urban heat.
No, sorry, include a clause entitled urban heat in the LEP.
Clause entitled urban heat in the LEP. Yep.
That uses the clause in Penrith local environmental plan.
Yep.
2010 clause 7.30.
That's the proposed amendment. Is that seconded? Seconded, councillor Lane. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This issue has been raised by the Huntersville Trust, but not more importantly, but equally, it was reflected in the decision of the local planning panel. The council should consider this, and I think it has a lot of merit. And I think that
Councillor, what LEP meeting was that? What local planning panel meeting was that?
It's the last one.
The last one.
this point .4 on page 4 of their of the report, but page 23 in the document. It clearly states that local council review the clause of for possible inclusion of a similar in the planning proposal for the development control plan. Okay.
Yep.
So the actual clause is specified on page 23 and 24 and 25 in the report. I think it is incumbent on everybody, including councils, to be aware of the urban heat effect. In my professional career, one of my scientists did a study out in the western suburbs of Sydney and found that there was a 12-degree difference between a community that doesn't have protections against urban heat versus those that do. And clearly trees play an important component in that process, along with design and along with a whole range of other attributes. So I think it's important that we consider those, even if we're talking about individual or local lots. But as was pointed out by Councillor Lane, we're going to have some fairly large developments, particularly in terms of the Gladesville precinct and potentially whatever transpires ultimately in the Gladesville Hospital precinct. We've got the Montefiore, but I think it's important that this be identified. It's an important sustainability issue and one that our community would benefit from.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any speakers against the amendment?
Question.
Councillor Vergara.
Question through you, Mr. Mayor. The LEP says that consideration should be given to it for inclusion in the planning proposal or the DCP. Can it be included in the DCP? Is the question.
Director. General Manager.
Through your Director of Planning.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So just to unpack that slightly, the LPP provides advice on planning proposals, which it has done in this instance. So the LPP, local planning panel, did suggest that the intent of the Penrith LEP could be captured in the LEP or the DCP, and we've made significant proposed amendments to the DCP to capture the intent of that clause. So that's how it's been addressed. So we wholeheartedly believe that there's a lot of good intent in that, and that's between landscaping and urban forest and sustainability. We believe there's a combination of things that will seek to address that. In relation to clause 7.30 of the Penrith LEP, there may be some wording. For example, that clause refers to Penrith on a number of occasions, I do believe. So it's semantics, but I do believe there's a few things that would need to be worked through, and we felt that it would sit best in the DCP and also supported by other provisions of the DCP and our planning proposal with.
Thank you.
Any speakers for the amendment?
If I can ask another question,
Question, councillor Way.
could you just take us to the clause that you're referring to so that we can have a quick look? In the DCP.
The DCP, so it's the last chapter of the DCP. So
Right.
it's a standalone sustainability chapter that's being proposed.
Okay. So the table of contents in the copy that we have doesn't reflect the DCP, so it's hard to follow where things are.
Okay, yes. So there's two substantial changes towards the end of the DCP. One is in relation to waste management. The last one is in relation to sustainability specifically. So we're looking to introduce some fairly substantial.
Oh, is it?
It's on page
Is it
563.
Right, thank you.
Councillors, any speakers against the motion, against the amendment? Sorry, councillor Vergara.
Now, on the basis that the professionals have considered its inclusion in the LEP and the DCP and decided to put it in the DCP, then against the amendment.
Any speakers for? Against? Right to reply, councillor Williams.
I think it's of significant importance to warrant it being in the LEP as well as what is being proposed as additions within the DCP. I think it is a fundamental issue for our community. Sustainability is clearly one that our community are looking for leadership from council on. And I think something as important as that which relates to our streetscapes, our vegetation, our design, I think is a fundamental issue that should be reflected in our LEP. And I do concede that maybe a few references to Penrith may be substituted with Hunters Hill. But apart from that, I think it's very important that we have this identified within our LEP as well as the DCP.
Thank you, councillor Williams. I would put the amendment to the vote. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Lost. We now go to the original amended motion, which was amended again by councillor Prieston. Any speakers for the motion? Against the motion? Right to reply, councillor Prieston. Not necessary. I put it to a vote. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. I now move to item 4.2, appointment of community advisory group for the update to Clark's Point Reserve and Morts Reserve Plan of Management on page 293 of the report. Is there a mover, councillors? Moved councillor Prieston, seconded councillor Denise Sleeman. I note that we also have an attachment to the document. Sorry, I'm on 293. Councillors, the recommendation has been moved and seconded and we will need to nominate one councillor, two community representatives as per the attachment of the report. There's two council officers being the General Manager and Director of Community Service. Welcome to the front bench, Annie. Two commercial representatives from the Deckhouse and Balmoral Australia who run the Woolwich Dock, one representative from the Sydney Harbour Federation Trust. We're going to have to nominate those as well. So councillor Prieston, did you have a suggestion how we dealt with the council nominations and the community representatives?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think we should take nominations for
The council
the
representative,
council
yes.
representative
And
and
then
vote then by a show
you,
of hands.
yes, that's fine. Did you have, we have a confidential attachment with
Yes.
a number of candidates. Are you proposing there, or would you prefer to deal with this and then just call for nominations from the floor?
Do we have to be in closed session?
No.
No. Then I think for the councillor rep, we'll call for nominations.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll just deal with the recommendation first then. Any discussion on the recommendation, councillor Lane?
Yes, so previously, when this plan of management group was announced, I raised some concern about there being representation of people with expertise on green infrastructure, and I was told that the two council officers would have that role. I now note that the council officers nominated the acting general manager and director of community and customer service. I was just going to ask, would we not be better having one of the two council officers being that green infrastructure person from council?
I can't really speak to that other than you've got the most senior council officer and the general manager and a director that's been here for a long time and does a fantastic job, but
Through you, Mr.
General
Mayor, we worked through that. And you might recall the previous meeting where we considered setting this up, where we talked about the various groups that we have in the organisation, and that each one of those groups would have an input into this process, and that's where those staff members will be able to have their input as well. I think some of us have a little bit of green infrastructure experience at the top, but yeah, there's the sustainability group, the bushland group, and there's staff that sit on those that will be able to have that input in through that process and feedback up to the group. So we thought we got a much better coverage this way.
that's mine. Councillors, any further discussion on the recommendation in the report? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried with the dissent of Councillor Williams. I'll call for nominations for the councillor representative. Councillor Vergara, are you nominating?
Yes.
Yes. Is that seconded? Councillor Williams?
No, I'm not seconding.
No. Councillor Williams is also nominating. Councillor Vergara is seconded by Councillor Sleeman. Councillor Williams, have you got a seconder? Councillor Lane. Any other nominations? I might nominate. I'm not nominating. Councillors, will deal with this by a show of hands. All those in favour of Councillor Williams? All those in favour of Councillor Vergara? Councillor Vergara, congratulations, you've got another job. I now call for nominations of the community members, two of which are stipulated in the report. Councillor Vergara.
I'd like to nominate, as I did when we proposed this, number 4, which is Richard White as a community member.
Yes.
And Nicholas Yap as a community member.
Thank you. Any other nominations? Councillor Williams.
Charles James Sanderson,
Charles.
number 6.
Thank you. Any other nominations, councillors? Councillor Sleeman?
Nick Yap.
Nick Yap's already been nominated.
Okay, and Richard White, fantastic.
Okay. I'll put those members to a vote. All those in favour of Richard Charles James Jim Sanderson. All those in favour of Nick Yap. All those in favour of Richard White. Thank you, councillors. Richard White and Nick Yap are appointed to that committee along with Councillor Vergara. Councillor Vergara.
Question, Mr. Mayor, do we need an alternate community member?
We can have an alternate community member. Yes.
Do we need? Well,
We can nominate an alternative community member.
Could I nominate Coral, please?
Nominate Coral. Yes. Any other nominations for an alternate? No, councillor.
I nominate Mr. Sanderson.
Yes. Any other nominations for alternate, which we don't really need, but we can have? No. All those in favour of Jim Sanderson? All those in favour of Coral? Coral is appointed alternate. Councillors, we now move to item 4.3, revised code of meeting practice for public exhibition. We have 2 speakers to this item. The first is Jim Sanderson. Thank you, Jim. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought after the last 2 terms of this council, we developed quite a good code of meeting practice. It balanced giving the community a very strong voice right up to the point that decisions are made. I think it's important that be retained. I realise that a lot of the changes are being imposed by the new model code, but at the same time, having had the experience of doing a huge amount of drafting on the former chapter, or the chapter 4 that now remains in place, a bit of creative drafting could do a lot more to see this code include community members in debate right up until the point that decision is made. Community consultation is a continuum. It doesn't finish at any particular time. It should be in there right until the time the decisions are made. There is an irony in this, in that I guess what the new model code is attempting to do is to bring other councils up to the standard that this council once used to live by, and that is to give our community a maximum voice. There are other problems I see with the proposal to go over to community forums. Community members won't necessarily wait around until such time as the debate is held. There won't be the same opportunity for community members to be questioned. There'll be limitations on the time that they may be able to run for if you're going to limit the time to half an hour, which is suggested in the drafting. There are also other issues in that, as the community forum is not part of a council meeting, there's no compulsion for councillors to attend, and I can see there'd be pressures on councillors who may want to be dealing with issues that are coming up at the meeting rather than attending the community forum. So I think that we need to have some sort of a provision as an alternate. I guess we're forced to adopt what's in the model code, but as I've said before, I'm sure some creative drafting like that, which I did for the current chapter 4, could be incorporated to keep what has been a traditional and very worthwhile aspect of Hunters Hill Council meetings. So in short, I think it's important we keep the community voice open. There are various other provisions I've got concerns about. I think we've selected the one where the mayor has the right to expel someone. Having been through many meetings that where there has been, some inappropriate conduct, I can only recall one expulsion, and that occurred as the alternate to what this model code of conduct has chosen, where a councillor was expelled.
Sorry, Councillor Williams, extension of time, seconded. Councillor Lane, all those in favour? Against? That is carried.
Thank you. I just
have 1 more minute.
I don't need 1 minute. I'm
Yes.
on the last sentence. But I think in that particular instance, the matter was resolved by the council voting and voted in the affirmative that that particular councillor be expelled from the meeting. I think that's a fairer process. It reduces the chances of factionalism, and I think we need to be looking very closely at these proposed code of meeting practice before it's adopted. I'd like us to work harder to keep the good work that's been done in the current code continuing.
Thank you, Jim. Is there any questions, councillors? Don't want to let me kick people out. It's no good. Thanks, Jim. Councillors, we have one more speaker with this item, Miss Annette Gallard. Thanks, Annette. You have 3 minutes. I won't kick anyone out.
Thank you. The Hunters Hill Trust considers that many of the mandatory changes included in the proposed model code will improve transparency of council decisions to the public. However, there is one discretionary change which has the potential to erode public trust. The ban on pre-meeting briefings, mandatory, is a step forward in transparency of decision making. The key is that the community has the same information as councillors and that discussion happens openly and in public. This should reduce any impression that some council decisions are made behind closed doors. The implementation of the ICAC recommendations to only decide planning matters after considering staff reports is overdue. This can protect councillors from allegations of improper conduct. We strongly support the new requirement that council document reasons when it comes to making decisions inconsistent with staff recommendations. Recording only the outcome doesn't give sufficient information about how this conclusion was reached. We also support the requirement to publish items of business that are considered during closed sessions as soon as there is no longer a requirement for confidentiality. We note a growing tendency to consider matters commercial in confidence, even after contracts are signed. While no one could dispute the need to keep the tender process confidential, there should be no reason for secrecy once tenders are closed. However, we object to the approach taken by Hunters Hill Council to the discretionary item in the code, the conduct of public forums. So public forums are mandatory, but you've got some flexibility in how they're conducted. Council is opting for only half an hour for public submissions at the beginning of meetings. With only 3 minutes allowed for submissions, a maximum of 10 community members will be able to comment fewer if submissions go over time, and cumbersome voting arrangements to extend the address eating into the time available. How will speakers be chosen if there's more than one item on the agenda that is contentious? Will favoured community members be allocated spots over those who disagree with councillors? When public submissions are adjacent to the item on the agenda, comments are fresh and immediately relevant. Members of the public are less likely to stay if these proposed arrangements are adopted, but perhaps this is the aim of the exercise. We are all cognizant of the echo chamber effect of only hearing the voices of those who agree with you. Apart from have your say, emailing councillors individually, or meeting them on the street, most of us don't have the opportunity to share our views with all elected members.
Sorry, councillors, move an extension of time. Councillor Williams, seconded. Seconded. All those in favour? Against? That is carried on my casting vote.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got one sentence. Debate and dissent is an important part of our democracy. If this council really cares about participatory democracy, it will retain the current arrangements. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette. If you could just stay there. I don't believe we can continue the current arrangements is the first point. I'll have that clarified, but that's absolutely clear in the model code. I take your point about more than 10 speakers at a public forum. I would imagine you would just be able to, by vote, extend the public forum if there was more than 10 speakers. And we rarely do get more than 10 speakers to any given council meeting. And I don't think this can't be issue specific, can it? It has to be a forum where you can't speak to whatever you like. And the 3 minutes plus 1 minute, I think, has just been demonstrated now. That's the current arrangement of Hunters Hill Council, and extensions of time are usually granted. So I know that the format's not the same as we have now, but it is fairly similar in structure, other than it being held at the beginning of the meeting rather than during each of the course of the meeting. So what is the objection?
In the model code of conduct, you've specifically said there will be only half an hour for the public forum.
But the council will be able to extend that.
Well, I'm sorry, maybe I misread it, but that's what it said, and that's what I'm commenting on.
General Manager's got a comment.
Yeah, just through Mr. Mayor. The idea was to say 30 minutes, so you'd always have a set time for a council meeting to start. Otherwise, yeah, that could become quite flexible. But it was always certainly my view that if there were more speakers on the night, you would just have to extend and people would get there for the council meeting. But they'd have to wait until it started. But you do need a set time for your council meeting to start, so we'll just try to give it some structure to make sure it worked. But as the mayor said, at the numbers of speakers, rarely exceeds 10, except if it was a really major item and everyone came in to speak, and that you'd extend the time for that.
Or major items, you'd have a town hall meeting instead of a forum, I would imagine. Be a more practical way to do it.
Well, that would be very reassuring if that happened, because the main point is that we want members of the public to be able to address the full council on matters that are, part of council business.
Certainly happens often, Annette.
And we'll do our best at our end to keep our participation to around the 3-minute mark.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Councillors, any further questions of Annette? No? Thanks, Annette.
Thank you.
Councillors, we have a recommendation on a page of revised code of meeting practice on page 296 of the report. It's moved. Moved Councillor Vergara, seconded Councillor Tanous-Sleeman. Councillor Vergara, got any discussion? Councillors, any further discussion on this item? Yes, Councillor Lane.
I have a number of questions, so if you can indulge me, I can give them to you one at a time or all at once. But I thought I'd start with there is a clause 3.2, which is a clause we've added, so it's not out of the model code, and it says ordinary meeting times and venues may be varied by specific resolution of council or by direction of the mayor, and wherever practicable, public notice of the variation shall be given. And I just wanted to understand the origin and purpose of 3.2.
Remember, Mr. Mayor, I was trying to get our old one up.
Might be from our old code.
I think it was just
inserted into the.
Yes,
I do recall that.
I think the yellow is what was in our old code and we brought forward.
Hmm.
So that was what was previously in our current code, and
I think yellow is included from the old code, and the red's the
correct.
stuff we've deleted or tried to have amended.
red's deleted or added.
Okay. My second one was in 3.32, we've used the term great urgency. The term in the model code is urgency. I believe that changes the meaning of 3.32. Is that just a typo, or did we mean to create something new?
No, I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so that should just be, I think in the model code it's urgent.
Yep.
The third one was in relation to the forum, but my concern is actually the opposite, which is if the forum is 6 to 6:30, does that mean that our council meetings have now truncated by another 30 minutes from 6:30 to 9:30? And have we considered whether or not we'll be able to get through all of our business now that we don't have briefings and we have a truncated meeting time?
We can always go late.
By 30 minutes.
Oh, hours. So we should do it like 2 o'clock, like we used to.
But my concern is obviously if we haven't considered how we're going to now publicly talk about what's in briefings, it feels like we're squeezing a lot into 3 hours, and I just wondered if we'd put our mind to it.
I think what you're taking out the front, we would have been slotting in between the meeting anyhow, so I don't think there's really that much difference. Yes, the workshops, we're not going to hold workshops, but there will be workshops at points in time on a lot of this stuff. It just won't be just before the council meeting. So there'll still be a process, and
that's been the subject of you've talked to other general managers about how we're not collectively dealing with this.
And any questions that can be asked before the meeting can then be circulated and made public as well. So there's that opportunity to include everyone in that process.
I've certainly spoken to the NESROC mayors about how council is going to deal with this as a whole, because it's a new way of organising council meetings, and it's a little bit strange, I guess, a little bit foreign to a lot of councillors, but it's Minister Honing's new model code.
Yes, and I note that the department hasn't actually issued any guidance on the forums yet. It's yet to come. So I guess my question.
I'd prefer if they didn't.
Well, my question relates to the question that Annette was just asking, which is there's nothing here about a quorum for forums, excuse the pun. And so to the extent that we're talking about things like extending, if required, in the new clause, should we not specify a quorum or some kind of rules around the forum so that those comments are heard and circulated and we can extend time, etc.? Because otherwise it feels like a bit of a hole that perhaps no one turns up to the forum or only one person, and they obviously can be able to extend the forum.
I think the more prescribed you make it, the more difficult it'll become for council.
Right.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. If during exhibition they provide us any more details, we'll certainly feed that back after the exhibition.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the point that Annette was making was don't prescribe 6 to 6:30 if more prescribed is more of a problem. So perhaps we can look at that during the exhibition. I'm not stopping exhibition. And then the last question was, I appreciate that we can't be inconsistent with a model code, but 4.4 in our current drafting, I believe, is already an additional clause. That's the one that says addresses may be read aloud at meetings. And I wondered whether or not that could be retained or whether thought had been given to retaining 4.4, because I don't believe that was required to be deleted. Well, they haven't required anything to be deleted, but I don't believe it's inconsistent with the remainder of the model.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I really felt the intent of the code was that people needed to be in the room. If you look at issues around councillors attending by online, it needs to be due to illness and they need to be here. And I think that's the read on the code that I've taken, that everyone needs to be in the room if they want to say something.
Okay.
But yeah, we can have a look at that.
Yeah, those were my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Councillor Vergara.
On that one, the addition on 4 says the purpose of the forum is to hear oral submissions from members of the public.
Yes.
So I don't think you should.
Am I going to Tony Jones that and say I'll take that as a statement?
Yeah,
okay. Councillor Williams.
I have a number of questions, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
that I'd like to raise. But I'll start with this public forum to begin with. Could I get clarification that the 6 to 6:30 in the code of meeting practice, that is not part of the formal council meeting?
I don't believe so, General Manager.
No, it's the formal public forum.
It's not a formal council meeting.
No, I don't believe so.
So if it's not a formal council meeting, how can council vote on extending time?
Well, presumably by the time that the council's here, if with a quorum and it is a formal council meeting, we can extend the time.
But by then, the 6:30 is expired. Anyway, the point I'm making, which I've got an answer to, is that it's not a formal part of the council meeting. Therefore, it's not covered by that.
General Manager.
I'm actually not certain I've got that right.
I think you have.
No, I don't know. This is the code of meeting practice. So this is how you run your council meeting. You're having a public forum at the start of the council meeting. As the mayor said, if it gets too, we don't want it too prescribed because it won't give us flexibility. Can we come back to you on that and just we may want to get a little bit of clarification on that, but as I say, if we don't want it too prescriptive because we want to be able to be as flexible as we can for our community.
I think clarification is important so that we know whether all councillors have to be there or not. And I think that is a potential risk. But if it's not a formal council meeting, then not everybody.
I'll have to crack the whip if they don't turn up, Councillor Williams.
Well, anyway, I don't think the mayor has a whip, but he used to have.
Oh yeah, I've got a gavel.
That's right. Okay.
But I've never used.
Yeah, but still on that issue, Mr. General Manager, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Acting General Manager. On your report, page 297, you've got Public Forums 4.1, and it starts, the council may hold a public forum prior to meetings. of council and committees of council for the purpose of hearing submissions from members of the public. Mr. Mayor, through you, or maybe you might like to answer this one. The word is may. There's no compulsion in the new code that requires council to hold a public forum. So if we have this scenario where we're no longer got section or clause 4, which specifies how people can interact with council on specific issues, and council has made the decision it's not going to hold a public forum, the community are totally excluded from the democratic process. I think there's a major flaw in the logic in this. I'd ask like you or through the general manager to point out if I'm right or wrong.
So before you answer, General Manager, at the moment, and for a time it's sort of taggled between the mayor and the GM. The discretions with the GM and now with me to reject speakers. Now, I've never rejected someone from speaking. I know a former mayor that had, but in that same vein, I think it would be fairly bold, mayor / council / staff, to not allow someone to speak at a public forum and not hold one. That's not the way we've done business, but that discretion's there now. We just don't use it.
Look, through you, Mr. Mayor, my understanding of that was you may hold a public forum if people want to speak. If there's no speakers, then you don't hold a public forum. But again, this is where, this is the terminology they've given us. We can, but we're building into our code that we do hold a public forum, so therefore it has to be held.
Oh, no, the wording is may. Anyway, I move on. In the documentation, there's 2 points where council needs to make a decision. I was just wondering when that would be made.
Sorry, Councillor?
Sorry. There's 2 issues which council has to make a decision on. 15.6.
In the recommendation.
Yeah, the recommendation doesn't currently say which one we're selected.
The council endorsed the draft code of meeting practice attached in this report. See attachment 3. Place the endorsed code of meeting practice on exhibition for a period of not less than 42 days, including submissions from the public. Receive a further report on the code of meeting practice that includes consideration of any submissions made within the time allowed prior to formal adoption.
Yes, but in the documentation, as I say, in 2 points, council needs to make a decision on which it would accept in the code of conduct, code of meeting practice.
Yeah.
I'm wondering why we're not doing that tonight, so the documentation goes forward.
Which are the relevant sections?
There's 15.16 and 15.14.1. And 14.1's on page 39 and 15.16. Oh, sorry. That's should be 5.16 on page. No, wait a sec. That's 5.32 and 15.4.1. 2 areas where we need to make a decision on which path we wish to go down.
15.4.1.
No, 15.1.4.1. And that's on page 39. That's one decision point for council. And then we have in 5.32, there's another option or decision point for council. I was just wondering when we might be making those decisions. I think they should be done now.
So just so that I'm clear, to the general manager and potentially the director, is the intention to put this out as draft on exhibition to the public, collect the submissions and collate that and make those decisions when it's back at council, or is the intention to make those determinations?
Within the report, we propose that council use clause 1515, which I think is this is the one
Covered
regarding,
in the report.
yeah.
Council may use either clause 15 or 1516. It's proposed that council use clause 1515.
So is that what's going on? What's the issue?
Yes.
Okay, well, I think that needs to be explicit in the recommendation, I would have thought. And likewise with, the other one, which is, what's the one on page 39?
Page 39 of the code, which is page 348 of the.
That's right, yeah, and there's 1514 1.
1514.1.
Yep, and that relates to this issue of the ability to expel.
That's already been dealt with by a council resolution, Councillor Williams.
Yes, but it's now up for consideration in the meeting code of practice, so therefore council can reconsider or make a decision alternate to that. The option is there based on what Minister Honing has provided.
I think that decision was made less than 6 months ago. That's, it can't be reckoned.
Yes, but it's a new. Pick one up that's out.
Council, that's a fairly recent decision by this council to do that. I mean, you can see if views have changed in that period since the February or March meeting, but that's at your discretion.
Yes, well, the issue I believe is on the table in response to Mr. Honing's new code, and I think it's important that we consider that as an option.
Yeah.
Yes. 5.36 says at least 12 months needed for retaining our live streaming. Council currently has an extended version of that, 4 years or council or something. Or so I was just wondering why we would not have an extension of that.
General Manager.
To comply with our current one.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was just reiterating what was in the code. I think we would keep them anyhow. So I'm not certain we would actually.
They're on YouTube, so they're kept.
Yeah.
Anyway, for the purposes of the Act, I agree with you, Councillor Williams, and we can probably have that reflected when it comes back to council.
Okay.
Once it's on the internet, there's no getting it off.
Well, one would hope not. Some things that people do require to be taken off. But anyway, just getting back to this issue of public forums versus our current process.
Councillor Williams, are you still in questions or are we going into
I was going to
conversation? Okay.
No. The issue of our current section 4 or clause 4, which specifies a very detailed way which the community can engage in the process. Would it be inconsistent to, in addition to the public forum process which the minister is directing, the council also retain the opportunity for direct input from residents at the time of matters being dealt with?
Yes.
General Manager.
So in other words, just reinstate section 4, acknowledging that there is a public forum that may be held as well.
Well, it's my understanding that the code was to be implemented as presented to council. to do that, you'd have a lot of doubling up because people would come and talk at the start and then also want to talk at the time of the motion. It's being, you know, the report's being put. So I'd have to get some advice on that as to whether that's possible. But as I say, we're only talking, everyone talking at half an hour before the item, and then we're dealing with it over the next 2.5 hours. It shouldn't be too difficult to remember the arguments.
Councillor Williams.
Yes,
Sorry,
Dr.
Councillor Lane. Councillor Williams has a call.
Okay.
Yes.
I was going to assist you. It's all right.
Oh, okay.
I think Councillor Williams needs your assistance, Councillor Lane. Enough.
Sometimes I need assistance in many facets of life. 3.32, we're getting back to this issue of briefings versus workshops. I think Councillor Lane may have alluded to this, but the question I have relates to how is it intended for council to now meet its commitments with only one meeting a month? Previously, council had 2 meetings a month, and I understand the intent of the deletion of briefings is to enhance transparency. So I was wondering how we're going to move forward with the volume of like papers, 600 pages. How we're going to move forward as a council with only now 3 hours once a month to consider matters. And I note that we have a comment that people can approach the general manager individually to get information. I think that'll be very cumbersome. So I see in this code that there's a lack of clarity as to how we're moving forward. I'm just wondering whether the general manager, acting general manager, has given consideration to how council will operate under this new arrangement.
Acting GM.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think we've been operating okay with 1 meeting a month. The workshops aren't always in relation to what's on the next agenda. It may be something that's coming up some time in the future. So as I said earlier, I think there's still opportunities to be able to do that. That's the general managers of other councils that we all agree that this is not stopping workshops, it's just stopping you workshopping the council meeting agenda.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Okay. Councillor Lane.
Thank you. I have one further question, but also in terms of a point of information, the drafting of the forum clause uses the word prior to a meeting, which would imply that the forum was not part of the meeting. But the clause in relation to members attending public meetings, which is, I don't know what the new numbering is, but it's a little bit after 1516, says that members of the public must remain silent during meetings unless invited by the chairperson to speak. And I believe that the unless invited allows us the discretion to bring back people from the forum during the meeting to make their submissions. So in light of that wording, perhaps we can look a little bit further at Councillor Williams' suggestion that we allow some of the forum people to speak to items during the meeting itself. I guess my concern about the forum, we'll just have to see how it plays out. But because it is a general forum, we could get people coming about completely unrelated issues that they just want to ventilate, and
We have had that before, and we've allowed them to speak.
Yes, but in doing so, the people who want to speak to the meeting may not actually have time. So having an ability to bring them to the item, I think, would be beneficial. The question I had, that's just a comment. The question I had, I unfortunately missed before, and it's in relation to the struck out 11.6. So this was a clause we had in our current Code of Meeting Conduct, and it's an optional clause in the new Code of Meeting Conduct. So you can choose between the wording that's struck out there or the subsequent 4 clauses that have been added. The difference between current 11.16 and the new clauses is we go from recording who voted on council decisions to only recording if someone asks for their dissent to be put in the minutes. And I just would like to understand the logic behind choosing the option which doesn't reflect our current practice, to the Mayor's point around, generally speaking, going with what we currently have in our code of meeting conduct.
General Manager.
Just looking at the other options.
Perhaps we can take that
I
on
think
notice
we-
because
we
we can
take
get
on
that back to.
That could come back. I actually took it that we'd still be doing that, to be honest with you, so maybe I've just overlooked that, that sort of cuts that off, but,
If it wasn't the
somewhere
intention
else where
to
it's
change it-
sort of said it is still recorded or, but,
yeah, I'd just suggest if there wasn't the intention to change
no,
it,
that
that
the
we
last dot point.
Sorry, councillor, so on the top of page 339, all voting at council meetings, including meetings that are closed to the public, must be recorded in the minutes of meetings with the names of the councillors who voted for and against each motion or amendment, including the use use of casting vote being recorded.
Yes, but then you'll see the note, which is the optionality. So it says if it's adopted, then the previous clauses can be omitted. So in the public version, this is all red text, not black text, which suggests you don't choose all of them, you choose between them. But look, it's a question. We can always resolve it when it comes back.
Yes,
we're showing that it's actually being in though, councillor. If we were going to remove it, we would have had it crossed out.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misread the 1116.
Councillors, any further questions or discussion on this? Councillor Vergara.
So the way I read it, the council may determine the rules for the forum. So all of these things about if they're held, if there's no speakers, how many speakers, what items you speak to, extensions of time, they can all be covered in the rules. And I assume the rules will be brought back to us to vote.
Councillors, any further discussion on this item? Councillor Lane.
Has it been moved yet?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Moved.
Can I move?
Councillor Tenousse-Sleeman.
Can I move an amendment?
You may.
I've just noticed we have two copies. We have a marked up copy and we have the clean copy. And the motion as it's currently worded only puts the clean copy up for public consultation. Given how difficult it is to understand what's changing, can I move that both the the marked up and the clean copy are put on exhibition? So at the moment, it says place the endorsed code of meeting code of meeting practice in 2. This would read place the draft and endorsed.
Councillor Lane, this document that you're reading from is public and it is marked up. This goes to the public.
I appreciate that the public can look up our agenda, but they would have to know what meeting we agreed to it on. They would have to know where it was. I would suggest that in the interests of clarity, we just put it up.
Is that amendment, is the amendment agreed to by the mover and seconder? Yeah. Seconder, yes, that becomes part of the motion. Councillors, any further discussion on this item? If not, right of reply, councillor. The motion, all those in favour? Against? That is carried with the dissent of Councillor Williams. Councillors, can I just check, do we have any items from 4.4, managing unreasonable complaints conduct policy, 4.5, referral of draft financial statements for audit, 4.6, investments report as at 31 July, 4.7, proposed electric vehicle charging infrastructure at Henley, 4.8, minutes of Cultural Events Advisory Committee, 4.9, minutes of Conservation Advisory Panel, 4.10, minutes of Sustainability Advisory Committee, 4.11, minutes of Cultural Events Advisory Committee, 4.12, development applications determined under delegated authority, 4.13, reports on legal matters, or 4.14, council briefings and workshops that want any direct discussion on.
I'd like, I've got some questions referring to the financial statements.
Financial statements. 4.5, yep. Councillors?
Yes, I have questions on financial statements.
Yes.
And otherwise comments we can make in block.
Yes. Yep. Councillor Williams?
Yeah, no, 4.5.
Are you happy to move these in block and make those comments in block? Yes. Can I have someone move that those be moved in block? Councillor Lane, seconded Councillor Tanu-Sleeman. All those in favour? Against? That is carried with the dissent of Councillor Williams. We'll now move those in block. Councillors, any discussion on any of those items that are in block? Yes, you may ask questions now. Councillor Lane, would you like to speak to the motion?
Sure. Thank you.
Yep.
Thought we'd do it in order, but look, I just looking at the audited financial statements, I note that we're now $3 million in deficit. Some of it is technical in terms of this $2 million that we count as operational from not selling land, but I am concerned with there's a reference to an overspend on planning of 253,000 and legals on 372. I understand the legals, but can the overspend on planning be explained?
General Manager.
Yes, I'm sure it can. I'm just trying to find the page you're referring to. Christian. Additional planning legal expenses. I got that one. Where's the? No, I should not.
Sorry. There it is. I know I've written down the wrong.
So page number from the bottom on the bottom.
I was looking at the variance on page 446. But I believe I read the wrong row. So my apologies. Or actually, I can't see it. No.
Going to referring to?
Yeah, I apologise. I'll have to come back to you. I've missed the.
Councillor.
Oh, here it is. Sorry, I found it. This is in page 445. It says additional planning legal expenses. Oh, that's just legal. Sorry, I withdraw the question. That was the
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Councillor Tanu-Sleeman, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I noted a couple through you, Mr. Mayor, to Christian. I see. Yeah. A couple of just observations regarding the additional planning legal expenses of 253,000. If I can get some feedback on that. And there was a comment about reduced mini skips, lower than expected activity of 70,000. And there's 4 questions. Sorry, Christian, but I'll give them all. And if it's easy for you to answer them. The license for Baronia Park, it states it's not been executed, a time frame from that, and thus advertising that lower. Some explanation on that would be ideal.
Right, Councillor, what was the last question?
Bus shelter advertising's gone down. I was going to ask you about that too.
Well, Christian, I mean, I'm going to answer some of them and you tell me if I'm wrong, but the first one, the legal fees was the, 2 major expenses. One was the Cavazzini case and the other is obviously the Marina case. That's why the additional unfunded expenditure. The second one was the skip bins, and that's just a bit of a downturn, I think, in the number of building sites. And I think often people are finding ways to keep them on their own property and not have them on the street, so therefore we don't get the income stream out of those. In relation to the other one was
Baronia Park license.
Yeah, that should be finalised this week. The other one was the bus shelters. Our bus shelter contract, if there's a decline in the amount of advertising on it, I believe we don't get the income, whereas some were based on a fixed sort of fee. Ours, I think our contract hasn't been one of the best contracts to enter into, but we're with it and stuck with it at the moment. But if there's a downturn in advertising, we get less income.
What's the end date of that contract? That was a long contract.
I'll have to come back to that. They've still got a fair bit to go.
It was a
They're actually 10, 20 year
10 year,
contracts.
10 plus 10 or a, okay. Might be coming back soon. It's not a good one. Councillors, any further questions? Councillor,
Yeah, I have one question.
Vergara.
On page 445, rates and annual charges, unfavourable, 232. I would have thought we'd. How's that? You know how many places you've gotten the rates?
Yeah, so, Mr Mayor, we actually did get the budget right. It's just, the actual, income item is correctly classified as user fees. And so, it has been charged to user, recognised as user fees, but the budget is sitting in rates. So we're basically spot on.
Just so it's user charges have been added to the rates and annual charges.
That's to do with commercial waste charges. And so you'll see the user charges is over. We've got that's favourable.
Yeah.
And the one above.
What's happened with our commercial waste?
It's just been charged to the right areas now. Yeah. Being allocated to the right areas. So it's a machinery thing and it won't happen again. So it's fixed up now.
Sorry,
Councillor Lane.
If I can go back to my question, I've now clarified where my original query was. On page 445, there's an additional planning legal expenses, which is 253 lower in September than in March. But then on 448, the legal fees is lower by 372 relative to March. And I'm just trying to reconcile those two figures.
Mr Mayor, that is actually an unfavourable variance that we brought to account at the September quarter review. So that 243 was additional legal fees, but that wasn't enough as the Mariner matter progressed, and so we've actually come in and an additional $350,000 over the adjusted budget.
So it's cumulative of both of those figures. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. On page 445, in the last box there, it sort of says the deferral of planned sale of remnant land. I think the correct terminology used in the motion was to terminate process. So deferral means different to what I think the motion of council. You also state at the bottom of the page, the funds from sale of remnant land are therefore not available to fund day-to-day expenditure. Now, that's an issue which I've raised endlessly around this council table because we've always portrayed ourselves, well, not always. In recent times, we've portrayed ourselves as being financially sustainable and a council that has a balanced budget. Clearly, council has not achieved a balanced budget and needs to tell its community of its financial situation, which is clearly now $3 million in the red this year from the last financial year. And I don't see at this stage any clear articulation in this report or anywhere at this stage as to how this issue is going to be addressed. We have a long-term 10-year financial plan that clearly demonstrates us not being able to be sustainable. And it started off in that process as being almost balanced. We're now starting the process at a $3 million deficit. And I'd hate to think what our 10-year forecast would be now. So I'm very concerned that in discussion we rely on asset sales for a balanced budget. But in reality, including the auditor at the last audit, I asked him specifically, A sustainable council is about a council that meets its ongoing costs or its operational costs. And it's not about selling assets to cover its operational costs. And I don't think a council should be doing that. And I think we've now got that situation where we're looking at a $3 million reported deficit, but we've got nothing on the table to show how that's going to be improved or how we're going to address it. And clearly during that 12 months, there was warnings that that was not going to be an issue, and council didn't they'll take that opportunity to identify the problem and to address it. So I have concerns that we're now significantly in debt last year, and I don't see anything on the table that tells me how we're going to progress forward in subsequent years. And I know there's a desire to have a workshop. We have workshop. Yes, we can.
Well, the end of the year, yeah.
Sorry?
Yep, before December year, and it's not on the agenda.
No. So I have real concerns about these financial statements, and I would be really keen to know how council and council general manager is going to address what is a very significant deficit, and I don't believe we can cover it by land sales or remnant land sales. So we have a fundamental problem, and I think we should be letting the community know.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Vergara.
Sorry, I've got a question. Just because I just want to clarify something, my understanding, but this paper says that we will not use the proceeds from the sale of remnant land to fund operational expenses.
Correct.
That it will go into an asset repurposing fund, and that the asset repurposing fund will be consistent with our community strategic plan. And the community strategic plan says we will fund assets that generate non-rate income for council. Is that not the plan?
That is the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for clarifying, Councillor Vergara. Councillor Williams, you've got a question?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. It's in relation to that. If we have a plan, I haven't seen that plan.
Councillor, you have been subject to years' worth of workshops where we have discussed and set on a path and instructed the executive to do exactly what Councillor Vergara has just enunciated. You have also participated in the CSP plan at the beginning of this term, in which that was discussed. It's not a formal document. It is a plan to try and repurpose, recycle assets into non-rate revenue generating income, which is the only way, quite frankly, that this council is going to turn around a budget position that is non-reliant on grant funding. Now, to characterise the result as completely extricated from grant funding is a little disingenuous. And the operating result is in deficit. We are not, but the operating result with capital grants allocations, of which we've been the recipient of significant grant allocations in the last couple of years, has seen wonderful results for the community. We do need to get this right, and we need to stay the course and make hard decisions. In all of those discussions, I don't think that there has been a time where any councillor has come up with any other method of us turning our budget around apart from raising rates. And that has been something that we've discussed at length, and it's certainly something I'm not prepared to do. You might, I'm not. We have a real set of opportunities in our property portfolio that will allow us to turn this result around. If this council is willing to make some hard decisions, that will happen fairly quickly.
Well, we've been talking about this for a long time.
And you have been objecting to it, and you have been working actively against it. And I take that is your prerogative as an elected representative. But it is also your duty as an elected representative that if you're going to reject proposals, come up with alternatives. And that the only alternative to this is jack the rates up. All right. Councillor Lane, you don't have the call. Councillor Williams, do you have another question?
No, I find that offensive, Mr Mayor, your comment.
You can find it offensive.
Yes, I do.
It is no less true.
It is not true.
What is not true?
I have not obstructed council's processes.
You have voted consistently against any remnant land sales. You voted consistently and challenged every step along the process of trying to come up with a property strategy. You have worked actively against anything that would deliver a material benefit to council from its property portfolio.
That is your assertion, and I disagree with that.
That's fine. That's fine.
I think you're wrong. And I think the fact
I'd like to be proved wrong, but I don't think I will.
you are wrong. But the issue still remains that regardless of the rhetoric that we're going to sell assets to generate income, this council has been totally unsuccessful in that process. There's nothing on the table that indicates how that income is going to be generated. There's no feasibility studies, there's no business plans, there's no concepts as to how that's going to be delivered. And I would have thought that should have, if, as you say, it's under control, then we should have those facts before us as to how that income is going to be generated, what income is going to be generated, what amount of money needs to be obtained through asset sales to deliver on that. And there will be a time frame in delivering that. There's nothing can be built within a year or two or three or four. And so this deficit will continue unless we take some serious action to address it.
Well, I look forward, Councillor Williams, to you supporting that serious action with your vote.
Well, I think you should note that several years ago, under a former mayor, we worked very hard to get the budget almost balanced at an operational level. It has now blown out significantly, and I leave it at that.
Yeah, with the bus contract shelter that's now causing more problems. Councillors, any other discussion? Councillor Lane.
Well, as a point of information, I've already brought a motion about section 711 and 712, which looks at development contributions, which is how most councils deal with their deficits. I've had several conversations with the general manager about how we manage our OPEX and assets and roads, as I believe has our councillor Tanner Sleeman. We're looking forward to the long-term financial plan so that we can discuss operational costs in general. And I also reject the assertion that none of the councillors have looked at any other ways, particularly at the OPEX side of the ledger, in relation to how we would get the budget back into black. I think that while we are all abundantly clear that we're pursuing remnant lands as our sole solution, I don't believe that that's the only solution that's been presented to council. And I have a number of lost motions that show the degree to which we've tried to have a conversation that broadens that beyond. And I would welcome the chance for the long-term financial plan workshop that we've been promised next month so that we can actually ventilate a number of options and ways that we can all collectively make sure that we don't fall further into debt, including the $500,000 that we've added just since our original budget.
Councillor, we don't have, this council doesn't have any debt. We have an operational deficit. We don't have debt.
Deficit. But I do reject the assertion that no one has offered alternatives to deal with this issue.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Councillors, any further discussion on these block of items? If not, I'll put the motion. Oh, Councillor, right of reply. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor, right of reply. No. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Councillor Tanus Lehman, you have a question with notice on page 588 of the report. Has that been dealt with to your satisfaction?
Yes, Mayor.
Councillor Williams.
I would raise a point of an active disorder in relation to this question.
All right, Councillor, let me get to the item first. Firstly, Councillor Tanus Lehman, have your questions been answered satisfactorily?
Yes, I have.
Yes. Councillor Williams, you wanted to raise an act of disorder?
Yes, Mr Mayor, it relates to clause 315 of our current code of meeting practice, and also in the future code 1511D and 1511F.
Manager?
How do I answer that? I don't know what we're saying.
What's your allegation, Councillor Williams?
That this question in its form raises an act of disorder under those provisions or clauses.
Well, the question has been asked and answered satisfactorily. It's in the minutes. I don't know what it is that your expectations are.
In relation to these type of matters, they're normally dealt with confidential. And here we have in the public forum questions that I believe form an act of disorder under that basis. I would have thought these things against a councillor should be raised either directly through the normal process or as a confidential matter.
I don't think that there's a need to deal with it confidentially. I could be wrong, but noted, Councillor Williams. Councillor Lane.
I don't believe that's the procedure that the code of meeting practice requires for a allegation of a act of disorder. But specifically, if I can assist the council, this is an allegation of a breach of the code of conduct, and an allegation of a breach of the code of conduct is itself a breach of the code of conduct. And the fact that I can't respond to an allegation of a breach of the conduct by me is a natural justice principle, which is why it's a breach of the code of conduct. So I would like to have the matter responded to as it should be, as an act of disorder. I also note that in preparing the guidance for the new code of meeting practice, the department produced a free speech and local government in New South Wales guideline to deal specifically with matters that are in here, and I am very concerned that the general manager chose to respond to something that should have been identified as act of disorder. So again,
the code also deals with mischaracterising and misrepresenting decisions of the council body. And there are provisions, and I won't go into the code of conduct because that will be the job of the general manager, but absolutely raising questions of whether or not the decisions of this body are being misrepresented by an elected councillor in the community, specifically misrepresented in social media, particularly when there is a very strict social media policy. It's obviously a concern that is the subject of this question, and it's one that will be. Sorry, councillor, you don't have the call. Please sit down. Thank you. So, if you'd like to raise a question of conduct, you can do so with the general manager. You can escalate that through the formal process if you wish, but it is not the subject of a public hearing today. Councillors, is there any other items of business before we go into confidential session?
Sorry, just to clarify, are you also making the insinuation?
I am saying that in the code of meeting practice, the provisions around misrepresenting the position of this council in the public is very clear and can be the subject of an inquiry by any councillor of the general manager, because that is consistent with the code of meeting practice.
Are you making the allegation?
I am saying that the process is the correct one, councillor.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillors, Councillor Prieston.
I acknowledge that we don't have any general business item on the agenda, but that general business is still included on the agenda, which is why I didn't raise this earlier. But I just wondered if I might be able to formally thank Gabby and her team for their hard work in producing an exceptional Mookabulla Festival Day on the 7th of September this year. We've had nothing but great feedback from the community, and it was a great day out, particularly on Father's Day as well, for families and locals to come together and enjoy the sunshine. And it's not without the hard work of Gabby and her team and all of the staff at council, quite frankly, who give up many days and nights in organisation of Mookabulla pretty much 12 months out from the day of the event, and then give up their day and days beforehand to help set up, pack up, and make sure that everything's in order so that we enjoy ourselves on the day. So thank you very much.
Thank
to the
you,
team.
Councillor Prieston. We're not supposed to have general business.
I know.
I just gave you a bit of indulgence.
Thank you.
We can, because we haven't changed our code of ethics.
Okay, well, while we're doing that, I'll have a second run at the cherry then. I just want to give a very quick shout out to Hunters Hill Rugby, which on Saturday concluded a undefeated season in the first division, 16 consecutive wins back to back. And they have won the Suburban Rugby Union Cup as well. So I'm looking forward to having their prize day up at Boronia Park. I'm not even sure when it is, but huge congratulations to them on an undefeated season. We finally chipped at the heels of Blue Mountains after 3 years. Councillor
And given that we,
Denise,
sorry, and given that we are not including, but going to include some GB, can I also acknowledge to all our wonderful Jewish residents, Shana Tova, a happy new year and a sweet year for our wonderful community.
Thank you. Councillors, I haven't sorry, Councillor Williams.
Mr Mayor, in relation to the mayoral ball that was held on Saturday night, I understand it was a outstanding success.
Thank you.
I just wanted to get clarification as
No public money was spent on, no council money was spent on the
all
event.
council resources.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillors, I need a motion to go into confidential session. Move Councillor Denise Sleeman, seconded by Councillor Prieston. Any dissent? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Thank you.